kind of hinted at the end of yesterday's class. What would you do to solve this? If it was an equation, what would you do? How do you get the x by itself? How do you do it? Divide by 4, right? Yeah, so nothing changes because of this. Not yet, anyway. So divide by 4. Divide by 4. X is less or equal to? Negative 2.
Oh, yeah.
All right, you guys remember how to graph that? Plop a negative 2 down. And which way will I shade? Do you guys remember this at all? You have to shade somewhere?
Oh, you shade.
And the shading means all the numbers that will work. So give me a number that's less than or equal to negative 2. Negative 3. Negative 4. Right? So it's going to be shading that way. And the funny thing is, if your variable's on the side, that's an arrow. The inequality symbol's an arrow saying shade that way. Now here's what's going to be new for a lot of us. What do you put on the negative 2? No circles. No circles. We're done with circles. What's up? So normally you would have put a closed circle there, which makes sense because you're supposed to shade everywhere the answer is, and I'm allowed to equal negative 2, so I'm going to shade the circle because that could be an answer. So some of you guys are like, so what the shit's wrong with that, Jeff? So I use a closed circle back in the day when I wanted to include something, right? There we go. Right? Closed circle means you want to include it. Is that cool?
Sure.
You guys remember this at all? Because the open circle meant you wanted to exclude it, right? Mm-hmm. So here, why do I want to include negative 2? Because x is allowed to equal negative 2. So here's the symbols we're going to use now instead, because we're crazy. Or because we're getting more sophisticated. Instead of a closed circle, look at the letter I, and then I'm going to use a bracket. A bracket means include. I'm trying to give you a way to remember. So in this case, I do want to include it. So I would put a bracket and then shade. And I always think about Dragon Ball. Just to show you how much of a geek I am. Huh?
I said it looks like a backwards Z.
Oh, okay.
For excluding.
Oh, well, exclude is going to be, you take the circle and you just do that. So I use a parenthesis. So now we're going to use this instead of a closed circle and this instead of a open circle. And it could be opening either way, just depending on which way I'm going to shade. That's why I like the Dragon Ball thing. If I do like that, it's going to go that way. But it's going that way, I better do like that. Right? Okay, maybe. And this leads to the next thing, which I don't know if a lot of you guys have heard of this. Interval notation. It's a way to write the answer more concisely. Can somebody tell me what's the smallest x could be?
Infinity.
What kind of infinity?
Negative.
Negative infinity. I was actually looking to see if I could see it. So I start at negative infinity and I go up to negative 2 and I include negative 2. So I use the same symbol that you used on the, that's why we leave the circles behind, because now I want the symbols to match. Does any of this look familiar at all? Hopefully this needs to. Should be used to shading stuff on a number line. This might be new and the symbol I'm using might be new. All right, so let's do this. Let's focus on just something like this here. How would it look if I graph and interval notation this? So number line, plop a negative 3 down, become 3. What symbol will I use on the negative 3? Actually, let's start here. Which way will you shade?
Oh.
Right.
Up that way, right? So I know I want my symbol to open that way, right? Was that anybody's anything? What just happened? The piece of the ceiling just come out? Sorry, it freaked me out because nobody went for it, so I'm like, all right. So I'm going to shade that way. Why? Because it's pointing me that way. And how do I check this? Give me a number that's up here. 1. Is 1 bigger than negative 3?
Minus 1 or positive?
What did I say?
1.
1. Is 1 bigger than negative 3?
Yes.
Yes. Is negative 1 bigger than negative 3? Yes.
Point.
So you checked it. It works. You're supposed to shade the answer. So everything on that side needs to work. What about everything on this side?
Not.
Will not work. 11. So that's the boundary between works and doesn't work. Yes.
So it's the difference between the bracket or parentheses is just pretty much if there's equal to on the inequality.
One of my students said something like, if you see a line here, you make a line here. You see that? Over there, I don't see a line, so I just make it curvy. I don't know, anything you can get in your head. I like it looks like a letter I for include. And that looks like part of an open circle. But I don't know, I'm trying to get ways for this to get in your head. What would this interval notation look like? What's the lowest number it could be?
Minus 1.
Infinity is definitely the freaking biggest number it can be, right?
Yeah.
What's the smallest number it can be?
Oh, yeah.
Negative 3.
Yeah.
And do I include it? No, I just use the same symbol. Up to infinity, but not beyond. Why do I always put, what is infinity? Infinity is a process. It's not a number. If you thought it was a number, then I would just add 1 to it, and then you're wrong.
So you mean 2 zeros?
Say again?
2 zeros?
2 zeros. No. Oh, sure. But it's more like an 8 that fell over, right? It's an 8 that
Yeah.
fell over. That's a
Yes.
better way to do it. Mine is always sort of flattened. Somebody sat on the poor 8 after it fell over. But infinity is a process. Start at 1, add 1 again. Keep doing that forever. That's infinity. That's one way to talk about infinity. So I can never put a hard bracket because how do you include something you can never get to? That's all. There's always a parenthesis on the infinity. I can't get there. If you put a bracket on it, I want you to bring me infinity, please. I want to see that shit. Right? Maybe I don't. I don't know. Maybe that's what was in the suitcase in Pulp Fiction.
Because infinity can be pretty much anywhere in between infinity. As
Dude,
well.
no. You're thinking about, like, how many numbers are between 0 and 1?
Yeah.
An infinite number. Infinity is not in there. The number of numbers in there is infinity.
Well, I mean the process. I'm sorry.
Okay, the process is there. I like it. Okay, I'm sorry. There's a little side note about infinity. I just freaked everybody out. Yes.
So when we're solving inequalities, we have to solve the problem and then do both of those? Graph
Yes,
it.
I love it. So let's try a full-fledged problem. Here we go. Sure. I don't know. Sure. Let's see what happens. Yes. Oh, okay, sure, yeah. You do what you gotta do, yeah. Okay,
So distribute first?
good, I love it. So all the steps are the same as equations. I'm gonna show you where the only place that something changes is. It's not gonna be here. So when I distribute, I get 6 minus 3x plus 4x. Everything else stays the same. Like terms. What's negative 3x plus 4x? Positive x. Last step. Subtract 6, right? This is the beautiful thing about inequality solving is there's only one place where it's a little different. But overall, it's the same as solving equations, right? Now, some of you guys would be like, I can't do that shit. So that's the problem. You got to work on solving equations so that this is generally easier. And now, how do you graph that? Take a minute, try to graph it, and interval notation it. Try it. So graph it. You make sure you understand that's a 3. Graph it and interval notation it. So of course, plop 3 down. Why is it's getting chilly in here now? A little bit.
It's just
Okay. Let's see. Which way am I going to shade?
right. To the left.
To the left. And so what symbol do I put on the 3? Good. Because I see a line, I want to draw a line, and I want to include it. So let me see if this helps anybody. See how that problem had no ceiling? You see what I mean? Had no ceiling. Does that make any sense to anybody? It's got no ceiling. So there's a definite floor, but no ceiling. This one has no floor. It's got no down. I don't know if that helps anybody. It's always got to be smallest to biggest. Well, the absolute, in fact, I just put the wrong thing. The absolute biggest thing is 3. And of course, what symbol goes in? Same one. And the smallest, negative infinity. I like it. Yes?
So why do you shade that way?
Where are the numbers less than 3? That way.
Nice.
And then the shortcut is, that is an arrow pointing you which way to shade. I like it. Okay. All right, so let's talk about the one place that these are different. Otherwise, they're exactly the same. You distribute like terms, move your stuff, divide, all the same as equations. The one place these are different, they have to be different somewhere because they're not equations, is related to that thing I said yesterday. Is this true? Yes, 2 is bigger than -1. I'd rather have $2 than owe you $1. That's easy. If I divide or multiply both sides by negative, what does this side become? This side. -2. And what does this side become?
Positive 1.
1. Which one's bigger now?
1.
What did the sign do?
Switch.
It switched. It has to switch. So 2 and -1 are like this on a number line. Is that cool? Right? 2 and -1 are like this. Yes, yes, yes. Yes. The way you're looking, I was like, did I draw that right? Yes. 2 is bigger than -1. When I multiply by negative, they switch the side of 0 they're on. So of course the other one's bigger now. So of course the inequality symbol has to flip. So let's try a really basic problem out like that.
So how would you write the interval?
Don't worry, it's all the same after that. Watch. So if I have -2x is greater than 8. I definitely have to divide by -2. But since I divided by a negative, that's got to switch. Yes?
When you divide by a negative, you switch the.
When you divide or multiply by a negative number, the inequality has to flip. I'll show you another reason why. What do you get on this side? -4. Now before we graph and all that stuff, watch. I'll show you another way to look at this problem. And it's a way that you should never do, but I just want to show you. So let's look at this problem again. This first thing I'm going to do is weird, but I'm completely allowed to do it. Couldn't I add 2x to both sides? Would you? No. Could you? Hell yeah. I could add 18 billion to both sides of any damn thing I want to. Do you normally want to do that? No. Could you do it? Shit, yeah. So what do I end up over here? -2x plus 2x is 0. Now let me subtract 8, because I'm weird. again, I always get people that don't really understand. I'm showing you something you should never do. But I'm hoping this helps you see a different way to see why the sign has to switch. Yes?
It's the same, but you do it different, right?
Same problem,
Same.
doing it a different way. Yes, that's the whole
You
point.
do it different way.
Different way.
We can do it this way. or
Please
this
do
way?
it this way.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
See, I've said this a couple times, but I always get somebody, and then they come back to the class, and they're like, "I'm never going to do it that way. You're so weird." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Don't do it this way. Why would you?" But now, stay with me.
Make me
Stay with
dizzy.
me. Stay with me. This is an explanatory way. This is
Yeah.
another angle to see why something we do makes sense.
Okay.
Because I saw some of you guys still looking at me like, "Why the shit do you do that?" So be with me. Last step would be divide by 2. Right? How can I turn that around? -4 is bigger than x, correct? Read it this way. Read it this way. What's it say? Read it this way. What's it say? X is less than -4. Right? So either when you divide by negative, you flip the sign, because if you did it this funky ass way, you would move the x piece to the other side of the sign. Do you see what I'm saying? You would move it over there so that the x moved to the other side, but the shortcut is just turn the stupid thing around instead of moving all this shit. That is a shortcut. It's another way to look at it. And you guys don't like either way. Shit. Yes.
I like the first one, you confused me
No,
on the
please, dear
second.
God, never do it this way.
When you divide or multiply by negative, you just always flip the sign.
Yes. But I really wish you guys could see what I'm saying now. If that makes sense, great. You don't need this. But if I didn't want to do that, I could always just make it positive. But do you see how I moved it to the other side of this? So here the x is greater, but now the x is less. So the shortcut is, don't do that weird shit. If you divide by negative, you turn the sign. Because you would have moved the whole thing on the other side. That's the only other alternative if you don't want to divide by
Like
negative.
we change divide to multiply.
Say again?
How do we change the divide to multiply when we change?
Change the sign, change the symbol.
Yes.
That's what I mean. Not multiply or divide, change the direction it's facing.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, I'll take this away.
I have another question.
Hold on, we're not done with this. Unless it's about this.
Yeah.
What's your question?
The reason why we divide 2x by -2 is because -2 is multiplied by
Yes,
x?
yes, of course.
Is that the okay.
Of course.
Yeah.
Same reason we would do it in the equation,
Okay.
right? That idea hasn't changed. Operation is multiplication, I want to kill it.
Okay.
That hasn't changed. Now, real quick, how do I graph this? Which way am I going to shade? Down, yeah. And then what symbol's going to go on the -4?
No, include.
Do I see it include? Do I see a line?
No.
No, so I make a curve.
Bracket.
I don't see a
Or
line, so I make a
exclude.
curve. And then it goes from -infinity up to -4. There. See how the the infinity piece is in where the shading is? Because that's what the shading means. It's the process of going forever. So that's the process of going forever in that direction.
So, if the shading was that way, you put the infinity sign.
On the other side, it would be positive infinity. Yeah.
No, why are we excluding negative infinity? Shouldn't
What do you
there be
mean?
a bracket there?
So earlier, so again, if you do that, I want you to bring infinity into me,
Oh,
right? You could include the 4, because you could bring in 4 apples and say, here's 4, Jeff. And I'm like, no, it's, if you put a bracket on infinity, bring me that shit. I want to see it. I'm not sure though. I'm not sure if I want to see it. Here it is, Jeff. Whoa, I might melt or something. Like Indiana Jones. Can't handle that? No. But, do you understand what I'm saying? I can't include something I can't get to. You can't get there. It's not a location. It's a process. I know it's a very complicated thing. Just never put a bracket on an infinity. Because you might have Jeff say something really dorky. Bring me it. Okay. Let's try another one here. What are you going to do, Jeff?
Can you do number 2? -2x
On that sheet?
less than equal to 0. Yes.
Oh, all right. Well, all right. Sure. All right, go ahead and try to do that one. We'll try to do that one. Solve it, graph it, interval notation it. Yeah, good. Okay, and then graph it. Yeah, okay. Oh, here, while you guys are doing that, this is the practice test. And we'll have an answer key for this on Monday. No, that way. Yeah, you go first. Just because they're kind of like little islands back there.
This is a practice test, so it's gonna be similar to what our actual test is on Tuesday, so we'll get an answer key for this on Monday.
This is yes.
Okay, now. What's up?
I don't think it's due, I think for our benefit, if we do it,
You
this
said
will be
greater
the
than
test
equal
will
to
be.
-3, so it should be shaded. It's an arrow, right?
Oh, yeah.
And you don't want us to use a calculator on this?
On what now?
The
Oh,
practice test.
so on the actual test, there will be a part 1, you can't use a calculator, part 2, you can. Yeah.
But what about the practice?
Or I might make the whole thing.
It's a practice test, it doesn't really care as long as you.
Practice test,
You'd rather you not.
you should do as far as you can. I mean, you have to be ready for no calculator.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me see. All right. Oh, this can. So what's the first step here?
Divide
Divide by -2.
x less than.
No.
Greater
Yes.
than,
Oh,
Yes, right? What we just keep talking about. If you divide by a negative or you multiply by a negative, the symbol has to change. That's the switch. Now, to be really honest, we do that with an equation, but what do you get when you turn an equal sign around? You get a freaking equal sign. That's why you don't even notice it. Is that real? No, it's not real. But still, I mean, you can kind of imagine it like that. So which way am I going to shade for this? Yeah, I'm going to shade up here. And what symbol am I going to put on the -3? A bracket, because I see a straight line. And then what's that going to look like? Interval notation.
Well,
It's going to go up to,
divide.
it'd be negative.
it's going to go up to infinity. And it's going to start at,
Negative.
and you're going to put a bracket, same symbol. Yeah. So it means start at -3 and shade up. That means shade up, infinity shade. Okay. Yes.
So just about like using infinity in problems, it just feels weird. Do we use infinity sometimes when we're trying to say the foreseeable future?
No.
Like when do you use it ever? 'Cause
The
it's
reason
like-
it feels weird is because if I said you have to be older than 65 to get the senior discount or something, you with me? We know that doesn't mean that a 3,000-year-old can get it because there's no frickin' 3,000-year-old. So I'm not talking. So in that case, there's like an upper limit. You're not going to go to infinitely old, right? This is just numbers. Do numbers ever stop? No, they don't. So if I say the only restriction is it's got to be bigger than 2, that means it can go forever. And the way we capture go forever is the infinity symbol. Yes, that's what infinity symbol means, is it just goes forever. That's just the symbol we use to translate that phrase into Mathish.
So we don't really use that per se like in the real world. Like,
Yeah, we do, just not in,
Because we don't know what x is.
well, it's just what's the biggest X could be? You can't answer that question.
Yeah, it could be pretty.
That's what that means, right? So is infinity used in really easy little plate? No. Do you need to use infinity when you go to the grocery store to buy something? No. Is infinity just never used then out in the real world? No, it's used. It's just not used in easily understood things because it's not an easily understood concept, right? Yeah. Off the top of my head, I can't think of like a decent, easy thing to grasp about infinity. No one's ever going to go, all right, infinity, carry the one. Is this not going to happen? But that doesn't mean it's not used, right? Yes?
Why is that not a bracket on -4?
Because is it allowed to equal -4?
It's only a bracket when there's an equal sign?
Yes. So when I see the straight line, I make a straight line symbol.
Yeah.
That's a good way to remember that.
Yes.
What did you just say? I was writing, sorry.
Oh, when I see this straight line,
Yeah.
I use the straight line symbol.
Got it.
All right, last problem for today. Don't get too excited.
3x plus 6.
Is that the kind I want to do? I don't know. Is that the kind I want to do right now? No. Aha. I want to do this kind. We'll do that next time. What you got, Jeff? Yeah, 4x minus 2 square and equal to -10. All right. Right? Just want to make a point about something. The minute you guys learn something, you start to apply it in too many places. So that's kind of a giveaway here. So how am I going to solve this?
Add 2.
Add 2.
Divide by 4.
Divide by 4.
X is greater than or equal to.
Yeah, don't flip the sign. Don't say there's a negative. What did we do? What did you do? You divided by 4. Was that negative? No. So not just when there's a negative somewhere. If you divide or multiply by a negative, the sign flips. We didn't, so it won't. Right? Yeah. Okay, I like it.
What does the rule again? If you divide.
If you divide or multiply by a negative number, the symbol has to flip because you change the side of 0 you're on. I really want that should be the part that makes hopefully the most sense. You change the side of 0 you're on, so of course whatever was bigger is smaller now, and vice versa. That's why the symbol's got to flip.
So on the 4x you're dividing. Why
But I'm
is it
dividing by what? I divided by what?
by 4?
Positive 4. I didn't divide by a negative.
Thank you.
There, the rule is if you divide or multiply by a negative, the symbol flips.
Divided by.
No, I was just saying that multiplication and division are just reciprocals of each other. So
True.
So
Yes, that's why I'm actually
they-
saying
they
the same
can
thing
go-
twice,
they can
but
go either way.
that's right.
Yeah.
There is no division. There's only multiplication by the reciprocal. Yeah, but don't worry about it. And then it would be -2 with the thingamajig on it. I'm just going to do this a little bit quickly. Is that all right? Shade up. I see a line, so I use the line. So then I start in -2 and go to infinity. Bam! I like it. Hey, Mikey. So on the practice test, I have the last couple on number 2 are inequalities. The actual test would be at most this long. It's probably going to be a little bit shorter because we don't have all the time in the world, even on our long days, right?
Do we have the whole period?
Yes. So on Monday, I'll have the answer key for this. You don't have to do this at all if you don't want to. Just focus on your homework. This is just so you can see how I like to format my tests, and you can kind of see the concepts I'm going to be asking you about.
You're getting similar wages as like for the test.
All the concepts that were in the homework or the practice test will be on the test. See, that's a very teacher answer.
Is there any way where they're both parentheses?
Yeah, we've done some. When it was strictly greater than. If this would have been that,
Right.
that would have been parentheses.
And would have been a bracket.
Neither one would have been a bracket, right? If it would have been greater than, this would have been parentheses, that would have been there.
Okay.
Yeah. What's infinity though? Infinity, you always put a parenthesis, or else that means you can get it, which is free.
There's never one that's double bracket unless it's just equal.
Yeah, the only time that's going to be true is if you had something like a double-sided dude. Right? It's like,
Okay.
like a Darth Maul inequalities. So I call this a sandwich. Bread, sandwich, and jelly in the middle.
Are we gonna get that problem?
X is
I
greater
forget.
than
It might be in the homework. So you
negative
should try the
2
homework.
with less than negative, or no, less than 5.
So read that was X is between -2 and 5. Yep. All right, that's enough for me. So I'll see you guys. Have a decent weekend. Maybe even a good one.
Okay, I forgot.